So my name is Victoria Watts. I'm a legal advisor at RSPB.
And my name is Andrew Schatz. I'm a legal advisor for conservation finance and wildlife at Conservation International. That's the Tristan da Cunha Community Fund.
Well, the Tristan da Cunha Community Fund represents an opportunity to change the way ocean conservation is achieved around the world. In many places, the global ocean is increasingly under pressure from unsustainable fishing practices and resource extraction, from the threats of pollution, climate change, and loss of biodiversity. In order to preserve our oceans, marine life, and the livelihoods of maritime communities, the US, UK, and other countries and environmental NGOs are leading efforts to create a global target to conserve 30% of the world's oceans by 2030. Also, the UK, through its Blue Belt programme, sought to enhance protection across 4 million square kilometres of marine environment in the UK overseas territories, including Tristan da Cunha. However, to achieve such goals, it is essential that coordinated action is taken between nations, local communities, and civil society organisations to create the financial mechanisms and support structures to enable protected area conservation. So that brings us to Tristan da Cunha. It's an archipelago of 4 islands situated in the South Atlantic Ocean between Brazil and South Africa. Part of that is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it has one of the world's most pristine temperate marine ecosystems, which supports immense biodiversity. This includes majestic underwater kelp forests, fur seals, tens of millions of breeding seabirds, 85% of the world's endangered rockhopper penguins, and one could just go on. It serves as nursery grounds for sharks and feeding grounds for the critically endangered southern bluefin tuna. Edinburgh of the Seven Seas is the name of the only settlement on Tristan da Cunha, and life can be challenging for the 250 plus residents who make their home there. The main island of Tristan is the most remote inhabited island on our planet. Tristan has no airports. In order to make the approximately 1,600-mile journey to South Africa, residents must find places on visiting lobster boats and weather station supply ships. The community's main source of income is from the sustainable commercial fishery, fishing for local rock lobster and whitefish, demand for which plunged during the pandemic. Even with this income, the average annual salary after tax is about the equivalent of $4,500 per resident. So a key issue for the local community has been how to protect their precious waters while maintaining sustainable livelihoods in the face of potential loss of revenue.
So a diverse network of 9 NGOs working together with the Tristan Islanders and the UK government created the Tristan da Cunha Community Fund. And this established a new model for ocean conservation that empowered local and indigenous communities to protect their lands and waters while simultaneously improving their livelihoods. So together with 7 donor organizations, Conservation International and Pew Charitable Trust on behalf of the Blue Nature Alliance, the Becht Family Charitable Trust, Don Quixote II Foundation, Caltroco, National Geographic Pristine Seas, and the Weiss Foundation. All these donors work to create a $5.5 million US conservation trust fund held by the International Eco Fund, or IEF, and administered by the Royal Society for Protection of Birds, also known as RSPB. So critically for the Tristanians, the community fund offered a viable economic alternative to ocean exploitation by foreign shipping vessels. The fund will provide at least 120,000 pounds, British pounds, in annual disbursements to support environmental protection and invest in community and sustainable development on Tristan da Cunha, improving the quality of life for the Tristan Islanders. And 120,000 pounds per year may not sound like a lot, but that translates to approximately 10 to 15% of the Tristanians' annual revenue, thereby providing long-term economic security. The fund's establishment, economic security, and its inclusive governance structures enabled the Tristan government to establish and sustain the Tristan da Cunha Marine Protection Zone, which we call the Tristan MPZ. The Tristan MPZ, which is still undergoing the process of gazettement, will encompass over 687,000 square kilometers, about 3 times the size of the United Kingdom, or for Americans, the size of Texas. It represents the largest no-take zone in the Atlantic Ocean and is the world's 4th largest marine reserve. This will in turn provide protection for one of the world's most pristine temperate marine ecosystems. The trust fund contains a lot of great facets, but I think there are several notable innovations. First, it provides robust protections for the local needs of the Tristan Islanders and enhanced participation in the core operational structure of the fund. Almost all decisions on fund expenditures are made by local community members, and they also have co-equal input into fund management with donors as members of a stakeholder committee. Second, the fund represents one of the only, if not the first time, that a donor-initiated conservation trust fund had been used to enable a sovereign territory to preserve 90% of its exclusive economic zone, up to 200 miles offshore. Donors also leveraged other commitments or provided unique support given the challenge of managing an area the size of Texas. So, for example, the United Kingdom government is covering the cost of long-term satellite surveillance and enforcement of the MPZ. The UK government also provides the Tristan community with additional funding to spend on local development-related priorities. And then finally, the Tristan government itself committed to preserve the MPZ in its current form for at least 10 years, and hopefully indefinitely, especially as we build out additional trust through this fund. So the creation of the community fund and the resulting Tristan da Cunha Marine Protection Zone represents a monumental achievement in the philanthropic community's ability to leverage private finance to secure the conservation of wide swaths of pristine ecosystems indefinitely. It also serves as a model for other donors, governments, and the international community to coalesce around inclusive multi-party financing mechanisms to realize our ambitious goals to conserve 30% of the global oceans by 2030.
So I became involved in the project in May 2020 when RSPB's head of UK Overseas Territories approached our team to discuss whether the International Eco Fund, or IEF, could hold and manage the proposed fund. IEF is a charity which was set up specifically to manage and invest funds to create income for programs with conservation objectives. At the time, it held funds which supported rainforest conservation programs in Angola, Sierra Leone, and in Harapan, Indonesia. And under a services agreement, RSPB, which is a separate charity to IEF, provides administrative support to IEF. RSPB has assisted the community in Tristan da Cunha with conservation programs for over 20 years. Together with National Geographic and the Tristan government, it built a coalition of 7 donor organisations dedicated to creating an exclusive trust fund capable of supporting Tristan's ambitions to create the largest marine protection zone in the Atlantic Ocean. At the outset, this proposal meant looking at charity law issues, considering the practical issues, and seeking some external advice for IEF, as well as considering how best to support IEF through such a project and within the deadlines. Although much of the legal work was carried out in-house by RSPB and in-house by the donor lawyers, it was clear we would need additional outside legal support. The project would involve complex negotiations involving 7 donors from various jurisdictions. So we instructed Freeds, which is a UK firm, to advise on some charity law issues through the project. We also obtained pro bono legal support from DLA Piper, who provided a cross-border finance team based in London and Washington, D.C., advising on aspects of English and New York law and some finance, corporate, and compliance matters. The DLA team included lawyers specializing in international and emerging market finance, projects and infrastructure, and commercial litigation.
So once all the donors had agreed in principle to contribute to the fund, attorneys like Victoria and myself were brought in. I was specifically brought in to lead Conservation International's efforts to support the design and legal mechanisms behind the fund. Over the summer of 2020, we worked closely with RSPB, IEF, Tristan, and the 7 donors to draft a mutually acceptable term sheet. And this was no small feat. It's certainly not easy to conduct 10-party negotiations, but we were able to develop a very inclusive governance structure satisfying both the donors and Tristan. The term sheet offered a uniform set of conditions governing the endowment fund, annual disbursements, local governance structures, fund administration, and also addressed the challenge of monitoring and evaluating the creation of this, new MPZ and its effectiveness, as well as endowment expenditures, looking at also providing for donor remedies, and the term sheet also addressed certain flow down conditions that had to apply to on-the-ground projects. Victoria and RSPB served as the vital conduit, though, to both the IEF trustees and the Tristan administrator and counsel, working through multiple term sheet drafts, relaying and incorporating donor and Tristan concerns. And really importantly for us, I think that all of us respected Tristan's sovereign rights to control their own territory and future. And so this was all done in a non-coercive manner, where we just, if what we were offering made economic sense and met Tristan's goals to provide for a more sustainable future, that's the spirit that all of us had. So once the term sheet was approved in August, we had 2 months to draft and conclude 7 grant agreements to meet the UK's public communications deadline for announcing the creation of the Tristan MPZ in November 2020. The parties initially planned to draft separate grant agreements based on the term sheet, but it became very clear very soon that doing so would overwhelm both the donors without in-house counsel, as well as IEF, which is a relatively small nonprofit, but it is supported by, its lawyer, Victoria. As a result, Conservation International, with the support of Proulx, drafted a common grant agreement for use by all parties with slight individual modifications. And this was not a short grant agreement. This was a 33-page grant agreement with very explicit conditions that were negotiated with all the donors. It took a lot of efforts, a lot of late night Zoom calls between Victoria and myself and the other donors, but we were able to get that done. So after extensive rounds of negotiations between CI/Proulx and RSPB/IEF, and supported by the attorneys at Freeth's and DLA Piper's UK and US offices, we also secured the approval of the St. Helena's Attorney General's office. The parties were able to present a pre-negotiated common grant agreement to all donors. So Victoria then had the unenviable task of negotiating 7 individual donor grant agreements with IEF in less than 2 weeks, but she did so with aplomb and just in time. And so with all the contracts executed and the community fund formally established on November 13th, 2020, Tristan da Cunha was able to announce its intent to create the largest marine protection zone in the Atlantic Ocean. So we had a very varied team of legal experts. As Victoria noted, Proulx is a British law firm which offered very useful assistance advising IEF on charity law issues, guidance for navigating the UK Charity Commission requirements, and also on matters related to trust and corporate governance. From the pro bono side, DLA Piper was immensely helpful. There was a team of, I believe it was 8 to 10 attorneys in both the US and the UK, based in London and Washington, who advised on matters relating to compliance, corporate, finance, as well as navigating the laws of England and Wales and New York. One of the things that's particularly notable there is that since you had donors from the United States, from the United Kingdom, from the EU, all the donors had different requirements and sometimes different, whether it's anti-corruption or other sort of compliance requirements under local law. And so they really helped us to kind of merge that together and come to an agreed upon common basis.
I just wanted to add as well, it's just so important to point out that none of this would have been possible without the enormous amount of work carried out by non-lawyers, including the RSPB's head of UK Overseas Territories, Jonathan Hall, and IEF's trustees and all the donors. And most importantly, the willingness and determination of the people of Tristan da Cunha to preserve their natural heritage and to take a chance on one of the world's most ambitious marine conservation measures.